It's the third Saturday in October in Knoxville as Tennessee and Alabama square off. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Vols and the Crimson Tide. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. The Tennessee Volunteers and Alabama Crimson Tide will do battle on Saturday at Neyland Stadium. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. And, of course, this is the SEC Unfiltered Tour Game of the Week, brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, as we will be in attendance for this game. Again, I am Chris Phillips, and helping me preview this game, my good friend Dave Shumate joins me once again. Dave, what's going on, my man? Appreciate you taking the time.
No, fired up to break this one down. We were talking a little bit about this one off the air, just how big of a toss-up and a couple other matchups are across the league. You brought up the single-digit spreads across the league this week. I mean, this is the one we all remember from 2022. The Tennessee finally ended the 15-game losing streak to Alabama in 2022. Raucous environment in Neyland. You remember, I mean, I feel like Alabama's had, two goalposts here in the last, 3 seasons thrown into the state of Tennessee River at some point. Either over there in Knoxville or over there in Nashville. Yeah, this will be a big challenge for Alabama going into definitely the loudest environment any of these players on Alabama's roster has played. Both teams need this game. I don't really believe in the I don't know. I don't think this is a playoff eliminator. I think it's an SEC championship game eliminator, though, because they both have conference losses already. The loser's going to have 2 losses. But I don't think it's a playoff one because, I mean, the loser could win out, go 10-2. Still, depending what happens across the rest of the country, still pretty good. Still feel pretty good about you getting into the SEC or getting into the college football playoff. But I do think from a trip to Atlanta in early December, this is kind of an elimination game from that perspective. And the winner got to feel pretty good. Got to feel pretty good about still being in that SEC championship game race and in the playoff race across the board.
Dave, on that note, I would say if it's not a playoff eliminator, the loser, their playoff hopes, I would say, are on life support. I don't know.
This is your last get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yeah, I mean, I look at both these teams, and again, this is more of your bigger picture, if you will. The loser of this one, I find it hard to believe they're going to go out the rest of the season unscathed. Not saying it's impossible, but certainly you've got the leg up if you're able to win this game. And obviously, just from the rivalry standpoint, I mean, the playoff stuff aside, a massive showdown, Tennessee and Alabama in Knoxville. This is 3:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff on Saturday on ABC at Neyland Stadium. Dave, Alabama is a 2.5-point favorite in this football game. The over-under is set at 56. Bama leads the all-time series 59, 39, and 7. And last year they won 34-20. But like you mentioned, Dave, who can forget the last time these two teams were here? One of the most thrilling college football games we have ever seen, the 52-49 final, the scene at Neyland Stadium. It was peak college football. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen. And, of course, like you mentioned, the goalpost swiftly made its way to the river there in Knoxville and was deposited accordingly. So, Dave, as we look at this game and dive in the top storylines, I want to start with this. The quarterbacks of both sides. Alabama, I don't know what happened at halftime, Dave, of that Georgia game, but they haven't been the same since. Jalen Milroe has been inconsistent. He's turning the football over. Nico Iamaleava, Dave, hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 3 weeks after the way he started the year. Granted, look at him against Power 4 competition versus non-conference. There is obviously a split there.
Yeah.
Which quarterback do you trust more? And maybe this is a silly question because Milroe is the more veteran of the two. Obviously, we have proof of concept. We've seen him do it before. Let's just more so dissect this and talk about it. When you look at these two quarterbacks, I think a lot of this game, Dave, is going to come down to which quarterback is more willing to run the football. When I've seen Jalen Milroe at his best, he's gotten outside of the pocket and ran. I think he had like 100 yards rushing in that game against Georgia at halftime, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he was absolutely electric. Nico, same thing from the standpoint of, I'm not saying he can't sit back there and dice up a defense, but I think to be most effective, he's got to be willing to get out of the pocket, get on the run, and make some things happen with his legs. And also, too, Dave, because we know he's capable of doing it. When you look at these two quarterbacks, what are you most excited to watch, and what are you most looking forward to from these two gunslingers?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Chris, especially from a Nico Iamaleava standpoint of, hey, man, like maybe not design runs. Because I don't really, again, you see some of that in Heupel's system going back to Hendon Hooker a little bit with Joe Milton in third and medium to short situations. But you feel like Nico himself has to be able to, like, hey, if you're escaping the pocket, nobody is open, but hey, you see 5 to 6 yards of cushion in front of you, go get it and go slide. Maybe you go pick up 7, 8. He's a good enough athlete. We've all seen the volleyball highlights. He can make someone miss cutting back to the inside and making someone's momentum go opposite, and he picks up 10 to 12 yards across the board. I mean, I'm not trying to make him sound – he's not Michael Vick. I know you're not saying that either. I don't think anybody expects that. But there is something with this being such a spatial game in this sport, and even in the NFL now offensively. You make defenses have to cover vertically and horizontally the whole field. You can't cover everything. So when you add a dynamic runner at the quarterback position, it's just tougher to defend. And you know what else that helps, Chris? 3rd and 7. If you've been running on those outside runs, you've been picking up 5 or 6 yards, you may have that young corner, specifically in this game for Alabama, maybe a Xavier Brown or somebody, Jalen Milroe comes off his man because he's worried about you taking off because you've been killing on the outside. Oh, what do you know? I'm still behind the line of scrimmage. There's someone wide open because I put the corner in conflict. He didn't really know what to do. Again, right now, I don't think teams are really focused on that because he doesn't really want to run. To Jalen Milroe, to your point, I feel like J Mill's situation is kind of, we see it the safety this past week's a prime example. It looked like first half of the season 2023, Jalen Milroe. I had a buddy call me in the middle of the game and was like, how do we get a safety? The ball was 15. Alabama had the ball in the 15. How'd they get a safety? It's like, dude, he dropped back 13 yards in the pocket, vertical yards, and he throws it away in the end zone and doesn't go past the line of scrimmage. He went outside the pocket. It's intentional grounding, 2 points. That's where Jalen Milroe can kill drives for Alabama at times. He's got to step up into the pocket and take off. I actually think Bama is utilizing him in the design run a little too much. You're going to ultimately get him killed. He had 6, 7 more carries than J.M. Miller and Justice Haynes had combined last week. But that's got to slow down. But to your point, Chris, when it's there, Jalen Milroe would be naive and just lack of a better word. I don't know. Just you got to step up in the pocket and go take what's in front of you. Again, it's so hard to play defense against a quarterback when you're counting for all 11 in the run game. I feel like he can't in this game. Bama can't get in the 2nd and 5 situations and have Jalen Milroe go take a 13 to 15 yard sack or an intentional grounding, loss of down, spot foul, and you're sitting There's 3rd and 18 at that point on the road in Knoxville. That's not a recipe to go play winning football on the road because it's going to be raucous. I saw highlights this morning when I was getting my kid ready. It showed how loud it was getting last 2 years ago. And Bryce Young was there. They were spreading Jahmyr Gibbs out. They were both just Bama's backed up in their own end zone. But I looked it up. How many penalties do you think Bama had in 2022 in this game?
I'm going to go 12.
17. Remember how penalized they were? These games good gracious.
That became a problem at the end of the Nick Saban era.
Last 2 years, right? People want to get on DeBoer a little bit this year for the lack of discipline. But if you've followed it like you had, Chris, you just said it. You said the word right in my mouth. This isn't really new to Alabama fans. It's kind of been a trending, like you said, for the past 2 years, moving on to 3 now.
Dave, I want to spend a little bit more time on the quarterback position, specifically Nico Iamaleava, because they're going to be such key parts of this game, obviously. We know he's got the talent, Dave. I'm far from giving up on Nico. I think Nico's going to be a star.
No, I think anybody watches football, CP, you told me, it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah, it's when. But I watched him in person in Fayetteville, and I left that game feeling like right now, this is a very average quarterback right now.
Yeah.
He's going to have to play at a higher level in this game for Tennessee to get the win. This needs to be kind of the Nico coming out party a little bit. I'm not saying he's got to go throw for 400 and go win the Heisman on Saturday night, but he's got to be able to step up and make some big-time plays. I feel like he's lacking confidence, Dave. You can kind of just see it. Like it's just he's making some decisions kind of a half second late. I want to say this too, Dave. I don't think it's all on Nico. I know that's kind of a cop out, but I saw a couple different plays where, listen, receivers have got to go make catches. I mean, these guys have got to go make plays on the outside, like when it's there. Now, there's some plays where I think Nico's got to deliver a better ball, no question. I saw the one he threw to triple coverage against Florida. Like that type of stuff can't happen. But the entire offensive operation, what are the things, Dave, we know about Tennessee right now? They run the football well with Dylan Sampson, and they've got an elite front seven. They've got some pieces on this football team that are championship-esque, right? But Nico's got to pick it up. Just bottom line, Nico's got to pick it up. He's got to find a way to get his confidence back. Josh Heupel's got to put him in some positions to be successful. They've got to get things going offensively, man. It's just I feel like they've got too many weapons, too many pieces on the offensive side to look as porous as they've looked over the last couple of weeks.
No, yeah, I mean, you can even tell. I mean, Josh Heupel knows this. They have to get him figured out because, again, we talk about it all the time. In today's college football, your quarterback has to be one of your better players. It's like, this isn't any, no offense to like the Greg McElroys of the world, but you can't be. And again, I hate using this term. I'm about to bash myself here. I hate using the term game manager because that's what the quarterback does. He touches the ball every play on offense. He has to manage it, disperse it at some point. But you have to be able to go make winning plays as the quarterback. Now, I can't just be like, I got us into the right check. I just handed the rock off to Adrian Peterson. Like, you know what I mean? I just didn't turn the ball over. Now you have to go make plays. That's what you said. I would say up until this past week against Florida, I thought Nico wasn't bad. This past week against Florida, watching it live, going back and watching it, he was bad. This was the first game I legitimately was like, yeah, if they lost that game, you could have shouldered a lot of that, this specific game on him. Now, you mentioned it because they got a bunch of injuries at receiver spots. They're relying on guys like Chaz Nimrod to step up. It really hasn't. Dante Thornton, it looked like was out, but then he came in overtime randomly. I don't know if they were just kind of like, hey, we need kind of our best receivers here in this situation. Brew McCoy's banged up. Squirrel White looks like he has like a collarbone issue or a shoulder issue. He always comes up limping or comes up like leaning on one shoulder. Offensive line, the guards aren't very good. They got to help him. Again, Chris, we always talk about it. Mm-hmm. If I was a quarterback, I would rather have pressure on the edges than people coming up and stepping on my toes and stuff and being in my face. That would affect me more as a passer. I feel like you ask any other passer that's played a high level of football. I mean, I didn't play past high school, but if you ask anybody who played major college football, NFL, I think they would tell you, yeah, I can deal with the edge rusher. We can go chip. We can put a tight end or running back help. If the guys beat my guards and centers, dude, they're going to be in my lap. And that's what's kind of happening right now. Cooper Mays looks a little banged up. The offensive line is going to have to play well this week. I don't think necessarily Bama's some elite defensive front, but I do think Bama has enough guys on the interior like Tim Keenan, Tim Smith, Jamarian Latham that can go win their one-on-one battles against this current struggling Tennessee offensive line. So you're right. Nico needs some help. It can't just be on him. But Josh Heupel's got to take the training wheels off a little bit too. Yeah. It is what it is now. We're going on game 7. We're in week 8. Kind of is what it is now, Josh. I know he's going to make his mistakes, but you got to call the offense you're comfortable at to give your team the best opportunity to go win against good teams like Alabama coming into your building.
Yeah, Nico's got to go win you a football game. Jalen Milroe got to do the same for Alabama. Speaking of that, Dave, you mentioned this on social media. I want to highlight it. Obviously, a big loss for Tennessee this week. Keenan Peely out for the year. Talk about the impact again. You highlighted this briefly this week on the timeline, but this is one certainly that could play a big impact in this game, even with Tennessee's depth in the front seven there defensively.
You hate it for him. This is the second year the BYU transfer hadn't played a full season. I think he missed the whole season last year. So totally forget about the injury last year. I want to say maybe it was a shoulder injury he missed last year, but this one, unfortunately, ACL. Hope everything gets better for Keenan. I do think he's out of eligibilities, which sucks for the kid. But yeah, he got towards ACL against Florida. Depth, getting a little bit of concern. I heard Jason Swain talk today, like that linebacker depth outside of Arian Carter, who is a very good player, number 7. Outside of him, you go back and watch the film against Florida. You got guys like Jeremy T-Lander from Gainesville High School, Crimson Elephant. Dad is the head coach, I believe, at Gainesville High School. Right now, he just doesn't look ready. Looks like he's a half step slow. Caleb Perry's another kid they're going to really have to go rely on from that standpoint as well. But he, again, what year is he? He's a junior. He's played a decent bit. Kid from Kentucky. He looked a little slow-footed a little bit. Jalen Smith, the Grayson, redshirt freshman, will be in that mix as well. That worries me a little bit. I thought Keenan Peely was one of the few guys. I think I talked about it in the summer. He's a guy they couldn't afford to lose. it's not really getting talked about a lot where guys like Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer are kind of like, okay, we haven't got the interior run game going. We got two good running backs in Justice Haynes. If I'm talking as Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan here, we got Justice Haynes, Jalen Milroe. Their interior, their defensive line's good, but if your linebackers aren't filling gaps outside of Arian Carter, there's going to be plays to have. This is a big under-the-radar impact here. And I think Tennessee fans know this is a big impact. I just don't think people nationally really get caught up in the inside linebacker injury. But again, he's one of their more important players on that front seven. I think this is critical in this game. Again, I don't know because Alabama hasn't really tried to establish a run game with their running backs this year. They've ran a lot with Jalen Milroe, but with their true running backs, and I think they have two really good ones.
Yeah.
Do they try? Is this the week? This is a real question. And I think people may, no, you don't go running against that Tennessee defensive line. Florida, when they were pretty consistent with it, were getting some push. Now, I think some of it was Florida was throwing a bunch of eye candy motion, so Tennessee's defensive lineman had to freeze a little bit, and they want to get vertically. If you can make them go laterally a little bit, it makes them a half step slow. And as you know, Chris, in football, a half step slow, dude, that can be off to the races. So that's all it takes. So I think that's something we need to watch when we're watching this game on Saturday afternoon. How is Tennessee going to utilize the other depth on that line, that second level, and how will Alabama attack it? Or will they? Right. The first, 6 games for Alabama, they haven't proved they're wanting to run with their running backs to the interior. So maybe this is the week they do it.
Dave, talk Alabama's offensive line. Do you trust them? They've had their struggles. I mean, listen, they struggled with South Carolina's defensive front last week. And give the Gamecocks credit. I think it's one of the best defensive fronts in the SEC this season. But Tennessee is right there. I mean, I wonder if this isn't a scenario where Jalen Milroe's not running for his life. I mean, again, we know what Tennessee's got, especially in their front four, even with the Peely injury. I think Tennessee can get back there and make his life living hell all night long, especially with the home crowd behind them. There's going to be false start penalties. There's going to be mental mistakes and errors. I mean, I just, the matchup I feel like favors Tennessee here when it comes to Bama's offensive line. I think they've got some question marks right now that, this is the last place you want to go into, the last unit you want to face, trying to find those answers.
Yeah, this has been a good matchup across the board on the interiors. I think Alabama's probably got the best interior offensive lineman in the league in Tyler Booker. I think Parker Brailsford, the Washington transfer, has been good for him this year. Jaden Roberts been beat up a little bit, but when he's playing well, guy's a monster. He was one of the main reasons when that offensive line turned that corner probably about this time last year. Again, he's banged up, playing injured, so give him props for that. Gino Vandemark, when he's had a chance, if Jaden Roberts goes down as a depth guy, kind of their sixth guy, played well, decently against South Carolina last week. Tennessee, though, again, Rodney Garner's built a monster on that interior. That's what he's done, even going back to his days at Georgia and Auburn. Worked with him in 2016, one of the best position coaches I've been around. You're going against, it's essentially all Memphis lead team here. You got Amari Thomas, Big O, Bryson Easton's another kid on the interior. It's a Whitehaven kid from Memphis. A lot of that defensive line's got some scrappy, edgy kids from the state, but from really specifically Memphis. You got Omar Norman Lott coming over there, Elijah Simmons, David Hobbs has been playing well. I think that's that'll be a big heavyweight battle because I do think Alabama's pretty good on the interior. To be fair to them, you hadn't really had a chance to see a lot of the interior run game. I think they're pretty good across the board. I think they're a little better than they were last year. Obviously, Tennessee's much improved. I think if Alabama's consistent with it, I don't know if the numbers would probably show it because I do think Tennessee's pretty good. And again, it's going to come back to the second level linebackers as well, filling gaps. But I think Alabama could build off the interior run game in this one, which would open up a lot at the second and third level of those windows for Jalen Milroe. I think it's going to be something. I think it could be an A plus B equals C state. But again, I don't think Alabama's just going to go run for 150, 175, 200 yards down Tennessee's throat. But I do think they could be in that 85, 90, maybe even 100 range, which will open up other stuff because Tennessee's going to have to adjust, especially if the backers outside of Arian Carter aren't filling in. So, I think across the board, you got a lot of good players on the interior of both the interior of Alabama's offensive line and the interior of Tennessee's defensive line. It'll be a fun matchup.
Dave, how about the two secondaries? I feel like shot plays are going to be we're going to see some deep shots down the field. I think Tennessee's secondary has shown signs of that was the big question coming in. They've shown signs that they're gettable. And then Alabama, we talk about it feels like weekly, the young secondary they feature, and you're asking a lot of young guys to step up, make big plays. Which group of wide receivers and which quarterbacks able to connect and hit these. You're going to get 3 or 4 opportunities. Are you able to hit those deep shots? Again, we saw Nico miss a big one last week. We know what Jalen Milroe is capable of in the deep passing game, going in the deep third, but I think that's going to be a big part of this game.
No, yeah, I think I like Tennessee's secondary right now, and that's some people may be like, wow, Tennessee said no. I mean, I think it's the best secondary they've had since Josh Heupel's been there. Ricky Gibson's been playing good. Jermod McCoy's one of the bigger transfer additions for anyone in the SEC, coming over from Oregon State. Had a big play last week. Andre Turrentine's kind of a little bit of a liability. Will Brooks at the safety spot. But I think guys like Ricky Gibson, Christian Harris, Jermod McCoy, Boo Carter can help. Again, is it a lockdown, no-fly zone? I mean, no, I don't think really anybody has that right now, though. I mean, we've talked to Georgia ad nauseum about their holes. But, again, Tennessee's improved. How improved? Yeah, this is definitely the best of passing attack they have seen, at least vertically, because we know Alabama likes to stretch that field, and they're going to throw those corner shots. That'll test the secondary. We'll see. I mean, can they cover guys like Jeremy Bernard? Ryan Williams was a little quiet last week, but had 2 or 3 catches against a decent South Carolina secondary. I think for Nico Iamaleava and Josh Heupel, those plays are going to be there. They're going to inevitably. Josh Heupel's too good of a schemer. Alabama's in a first-year system defensively with Kane Womack. Young guys, Devontae Jackson maybe has a little bit of a hit pointer. I know he came back, had the game-ending interception. But I think there's going to be more plays potentially scheme-wise for Tennessee to take advantage of. It's just kind of goes back to the Florida game and what we've talked about. Can Nico take advantage of it? Can the receivers go 10 yards instead of 8 on their routes? That's it. When you're playing with this many injuries at the wide receiver spot, everybody's got to be on the same page from that perspective.
Dave, to your point, how are they not going to be able to out-scheme Kane Womack in Alabama? Because it's – you correct me if you feel like I'm wrong here, but I feel like Bama's getting coach circles around him right now. I mean, Kane Womack's defensive scheme, what he's doing, the adjustments he's trying to make or isn't making, they are getting exposed on that side of the football. And I think it's a talking point in this game, Dave. Kalen DeBoer, his introduction to third Saturday in October. This is his first big-time road test. I mean, they've gone to Wisconsin. It is nothing like what they are going to experience at Neyland Stadium on Saturday. And I know Florida just went in there, almost won that football game. Some people will scoff and say, what impact did the home atmosphere really have? I understand the home team's got to also play well to maximize the home environment. Still, that being said, Dave, I question whether Kalen DeBoer, Kane Womack, whether they can make adjustments on the fly and halftime adjustments in a hostile environment as well, where communication is going to be out of. I know you've got the green dot now, but you mentioned Josh Heupel scheming things up. Like, if Josh Heupel can't scheme up in this game, I just don't see that happening. I trust Josh Heupel and his staff far more than I trust Kane Womack and what they're doing defensively right now.
Yeah, and even a little bit past scheme, you see there's poor tackling. Alabama's not a very good tackling team right now. I mean, just go back and watch the first drive of the second half last week. Give Dow Loggins credit. Then they have a good scheme, come out 8-minute drive. You have Jahad Campbell, for people who don't know the number 11, flow, scrape over right into the gap, meets Rocket Sanders in the hole. I mean, and he's playing high, just like a stick like this, trying to tackle big Rocket Sanders, who's one of the best in between the tackle running backs outside of probably Jaquindon Jackson in the league, and just runs over him into the end zone. Again, he may pick up a yard, but just overall, Alabama's defensive, just tackling fundamentals across the board is not very good right now. Again, scheme-wise, you go back and watch some of it. The second-level linebackers have not been great. And I know Tennessee's offensive line hadn't been great, but it's not like, again, if this was the 2022 or even last year 23 defense, and we all thought they kind of had holes from an Alabama standard defense, this defense this year, from a fundamental tackling standpoint, is, I think, significantly worse right now. So Tennessee's interior offensive line may not be great, but if Deontay Lawson, Jahad Campbell are not filling in gaps, Dylan Sampson's going to be out of the gates. It's not going to matter. Both the Alabama second level and the Tennessee offensive line have not been good. That'll be another battle to watch. I think Alabama's defensive line's been better than people give it credit for. Again, it's not great. They don't have a bunch of just littered NFL guys across of it. But I think people will be a little disappointed if you really ask Alabama fans, like, yeah, man, I did not think our second level would be very underwhelming. I mean, they haven't been good at all the last 2 weeks against Vanderbilt and South Carolina.
Dave, third Saturday in October, somebody's going to be lighting cigars at the end of the night on Saturday. Let's dive into our predictions and lock in some picks, Dave. I'll let you start. Who comes out on top? Tennessee, Alabama on Rocky Top.
As we mentioned, CP, I would say me and you agree to disagree a little bit on the playoff thing. I get what you're saying. You were taking a big picture standpoint of, hey, the loser, like, I hear you mathematically they're not out, but I don't think the loser just runs the table either. Fair. Again, I think it's not agree to disagree. Big game for both teams. I do think this is a legitimate losers not going to be in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Still think they have a backdoor chance of getting in as a 10-2 playoff team, but a big game nonetheless. The winner is going to feel awesome. Like you said, either it's going to be a smoky Neyland Stadium or it's going to be a smoky Alabama locker room coming out there. I mean, there's been a lot of those recently with Alabama heading into this series, but it's a new day now with Kalen DeBoer. I mean, Nick Saban lost to Tennessee one time, I think twice ever in his career going back to LSU. But for Josh Heupel, I think this is the game if you were to lose. And the offense is a lot of the reason, again, against, we just talked about it, Chris, not a very good Alabama defense right now. That's when I think you would get the locals stirring, kind of being like, what the hell, man? It's year 4. What's going on? We had the chosen one, Nico. He's the problem. We're wasting a championship defense. You're an offensive guy, Heupel. You know, that's amplified when the head coach is an offensive guy or whatever side of the ball and they're not playing well. It's Kalen DeBoer now. You got a new time at Alabama. Tennessee fans are kind of like, hey, let's go start our own streak against Alabama. And traditionally, this is a very streaky series. I remember when I was a kid, Tennessee won 8 or 9 in a row against Alabama in the 90s with T. Martin, Peyton Manning, Casey Clausen, and them. I think Tennessee wants to get that back. They see Kalen DeBoer, probably if you really asked him, similar level as Josh Heupel. Can you start 1-0 against your new rival as his first year? They're coming to your house, ruckus environment. You haven't been playing well. Tennessee's fans feel like they can kind of be that 12th man, not to steal something from Texas A&M. But it's going to come down to Nico. Nico's going to have to make plays. Me and you talked about it. I think scheme-wise, it's been there every week against Alabama secondary. Wisconsin and Western Kentucky. And even South Florida. Alex Golish, who runs a very similar offense, was at Tennessee in 2022. They're going to be plays there to be had. Can Nico not overthrow people? That, if you're leaving points on the table, that's where Alabama could backdoor their way into winning this thing. It's going to come down to Nico making plays. I trust the Tennessee defense to make enough plays. Yeah, is Alabama going to get there some on offense? Yeah, I think they got the best athlete in the game in Jalen Milroe when he's playing his best. On the Alabama side, I mean, you haven't played consistent football all year outside the first half against Georgia. I'm not trying to steal one from Pat Dye back in 2002 when he challenged Georgia going on the road to Alabama. An early Martin Rick team, David Green, guys like that, Musa Smith, and essentially he's like, I don't think Georgia's man enough to go win at Alabama, and Georgia ended up going to win in that game. I don't know if I'm not going to venture to say Alabama's not man enough to go beat Tennessee in this one. I don't think they're disciplined enough or kind of have that it factor this year from watching them through the first few games. I don't think they have that to go on the road because I only the players like Tyler Booker and a handful of guys. And again, there's still some that have played in Neyland 2 years ago and know how loud this is. Alabama's mistake prone right now. They're not communicating great. It's only going to be raucous in that environment. Again, I think if this game was played somewhere else, I probably like Alabama's chances a little bit. From what I've seen so far, would I be shocked if Alabama won? No, absolutely not. I would not be shocked. Would it shock me? No. I think Jalen Milroe would be the difference. Will have to play the best game of his 2024 tenure so far. Probably maybe one of his better games of his career, honestly, and take over. I just don't see Alabama limiting mistakes. I mean, we talked about it. Alabama had 17 penalties the last time they went there. I know that was 2 years ago, totally different team, but that was with a stoic Bryce Young sitting back there leading them. Bama had so many false starts, holding penalties. I just don't see them going in to win this game straight up. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Would it shock me? Absolutely not. I think this is kind of a coin flip game. I think where this game's being played at this year is going to be the difference. I like Tennessee 31-24. I do. I think Tennessee at home makes enough plays. I don't think Alabama can be disciplined enough for 60 minutes to go win this game. I think the key for Tennessee, get off to a quick start, get the crowd involved. If you're Alabama, you want to do the opposite. I just don't think Alabama can maintain that level of execution, discipline, attention to details for a full 60 minutes in Knoxville, Tennessee. I just don't think they can get it done right now. Give me the Vols, 31-24.
Dave, you mentioned Alabama right now does not have the quote-unquote it factor. What does that come back to? To me, that comes back to Kalen DeBoer. You talk about how big of a game this is for Heupel and Tennessee, and I agree, it's a big game on both sides. Like, take the college football playoff stuff out of it. This rivalry, this is one of the great college football rivalries. Rivalries like this are why we love this sport. Like, there is pure hatred on both sides. Obviously, Tennessee fans for over a decade just felt the terror of having to play Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Finally snapped that streak in 2022. But, like, you know, every single week of this game, every single year, I should say, I see during the week of the what's the video? I hate that color orange, that gaudy
Yeah,
orange.
guy outside the student union.
I see that every single, like,
Yeah.
there is, and you see it on both sides. We've already seen like an AI generated video of Kalen DeBoer from Tennessee fans they created where it's Kalen DeBoer saying that Neyland Stadium isn't loud. And obviously it's a fake video, but it's just like things are already off and running this week. So games like this, I've said this before about other games this year, but it's just true. Games like this are why you love college football and SEC football. There's nothing like the third Saturday in October. To your point, as baffling as it is, and I don't know what happened at halftime of the game because, Dave, as you know, I was there in person. I watched Alabama play one of the best quarters and one of the best half of footballs I've ever seen, ever, from a college football team. They have not been the same team since. I don't know what happened. I don't know if the Monstars went and took all their talent at the half. I don't know, but they have not been the same group. To your point, they're undisciplined. Jalen Milroe doesn't look the same. You know, I think explosives, we talk all the time, explosives are going to be a big part of this game. To your point, Nico Iamaleava at home. He's got to have his breakout game at some point. They've got to take the training wheels off. And also, Nico's got to convert. His wide receivers have got to make some tough catches as well. Dave, how many years did you say it was? They went 15 years without beating them?
From 2007 to 2021.
It was 15 years. Dave, it's not going to be 15 years again before Tennessee beats Alabama. I can assure you of that. Josh Heupel, I trust Josh Heupel and the offensive staff to coach circles around Kane Womack and Kalen DeBoer. I trust them on their home field. Listen, it was a rough game last weekend against Florida. You know, there's some things there. A lot of things. Both these teams have got to clean up. I think both sides, they were looking at it and saying, are we capable of getting hot down the stretch and making the kind of run we thought we were going to make before the season started? Like, which of these two teams is more capable of doing that? Third Saturday in October, Dave, one of the best rivalries in college football. I think this is the breakout game for Nico Iamaleava. It's the game he gets his confidence back. You're going to see big plays on both sides. I think both teams want to stretch the field vertically. I think Nico hits a couple of those shots. I think, again, we see him break out in this football game. I think Tennessee gets the stop late on the final drive to secure the win. And like I mentioned, it was 15 years between Tennessee's last win against Alabama up until 2022. It ain't going to be 15 years again. Neyland Stadium is going to be rocking. It's going to be the best atmosphere in all of college football this week. And I think the Vols find a way to pull out the victory. Give me Tennessee 31, Alabama 28. And Dave, it'll be Tennessee lighting the cigars. And if our trips over the last couple of weeks have told you anything, it's probably going to be a thriller that comes down to the final play or two. So just going to throw that out there as well. Can't wait to take this thing in person. But I think Tennessee gets it done, Dave, 31-28. You and I kind of similar. I think it's a little bit closer. But I think this game is going to be a lot more offense than folks are expecting. But I trust Josh Heupel. And, yes, I do trust Nico Iamaleava at the end of the day to make a couple big throws. I know the kid hasn't been good, but Dave, he's going to have that breakout moment. Nico's going to have that moment. It's there it doesn't matter what industry you're in, Dave. Whether you're in sales, you're a quarterback, I don't care what you do. Everybody's got that light bulb moment. For some people, it comes on rep number 10. For some people, it comes on rep 100. Some it comes on rep 1,000. Again, it doesn't matter the industry you're in. That light bulb moment at some moment occurs. I think for Nico, it happens this Saturday, and they get that 31-28 win over the Alabama Crimson Tide, and the cigars are lit at Neyland Stadium. So
no, I agree with you. I just don't see Alabama the way they've been playing the last 2 weeks or 2.5 quarters. Or 2.5 games. I just don't see them because they're going to have to play. You can't, again, obviously can't go commit 17 penalties, but I don't think they can even get in the double-digit range, and I think they're going to have to be +2 in turnover margin. Now, is Nico capable of that? Yeah, sure. But you could also make the case, Florida's secondary wasn't great. But again, Alabama's secondary has holes. Alabama has holes on all three levels. I think there's a legit shot. I just think Tennessee's going to, again, I don't think Nico's going to be perfect. I don't think he's just going to go be a magic from 180 from one week to the other. But I do think there's going to be enough plays for there to be had. If this was Alabama's defense last year or 2 years ago, I'd probably lean Alabama. If this is even in a different place, I may even leave Alabama. Because think about it. If Nico was going on the road, we may be talking about something else. But we're not. It's in Neyland. I just don't see Alabama being disciplined enough, being mentally tough enough to go win this game right now. Maybe I'm wrong.
We'll see. Guys, do you agree with us? Do you disagree? How do you see this playing out when Tennessee and Alabama do battle on Saturday at Neyland Stadium? Guys, that's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.